Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news. Monday evening again. Edwin's back for another rant. Edwin, you can't make this stuff up. It is just an amazing time, isn't it, eh?
Look, it is, Martin, but let me start by first and foremost by saying lock it down, Martin. Lock it down. Clearance rates are dropping, and numbers on market are going up. So not lock it down. Come on, come on. What's going on?
we can't have that, can we? We can't have a clearance rate. Now, I don't know whether you saw my post. I actually put one out yesterday, specifically talking about this amazing spin, so I made a show called Hot Property or Not, because actually if you look at what they were talking about, they were trying to spin the story up, despite the fact that clearance rates were down, and they picked a specific example of a property that actually made more, in other words above the auction expectation, but it had a development application attached to it, which of course completely changes the valuation of the property. So they only tell you half the story, and it's all about spin, isn't it?
Yeah, look, 100%, man. This is why we say over and over again. Then, for a lot of people, it seems like we're saying the same thing, and but we will keep on saying it until the cows, come home. The thing is, Martin, that there are properties that will sell and that will get a very good price because people are just unsure of what it's going to cost to renovate. They're unsure of what it's going to, how long it's going to take to get things done because of the bad stories you hear. So therefore, the people that have got the money, and there's a lot of people on the sidelines with a lot of money. And this is what people have also got to understand as well. There's a lot of people on the sidelines with a lot of money. A lot of people on that are holding on to property that can't sell because the cost to transact is very high. There's just not enough around, in the area that they want to stay in or live in because that they grew up in. They've spent the last 60, 70 years in, and the kids live there and the grandkids live there, and they don't want to retire to a property 60, 70, 80 kilometers away from where they currently live. So you've got all these things working against people wanting to sell. You've got all things working against people that are wanting to buy. Now is the time to really take a deep breath, take a step back, and look at it, get a helicopter view, analyze, scrutinize, and really sift through the shit that's out there. There is a lot of crap out there. And there's a lot of good property that's camouflaged, with crap around it. If you can see beyond that. I mean, we just secured a property for a client in an area in the Blacktown LGA over the weekend. We consolidated the deal, and look, once you look beyond the rubbish that's on the property, it is a solid property, but. When you just look at the configuration, when you just look at the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the car spaces, does it have a garage? Is it a carport or a garage? And that when you compare that, those sort of aspects of the property, the qualities of the property, to others in the area that inferior properties, it's a great deal, but we had to sift through all. You have to sift through all the crap. Then you have to really get ahead of the pack. So what I'm saying is that there are deals to be made. There are properties to be bought, and people will pay good coin for them because they've done up really nicely. They've done up for the lifestyle. They're tapped into people's emotion, and there are a lot of people with money that don't want to go through the pain of renovating. So there's this, at the moment, there is a smorgasbord. You just have to go out there and look and select and take your time. Walk it through. don't get caught up with the emotion. Don't get caught up with the BS that the selling agents are telling you. You just got to stay in your lane and just stay, move forward cautiously and with a lot of, as much research as you can.
Well, I think research is the key, Edwin. As you know, we keep saying this, you have to go granular, you have to look at the local context of the market. I'm doing a bit of work at the moment on St Mary's, that place out towards Penrith. And it's a really interesting area insofar that it's a relatively low-rise area. But of course, they've got this massive surge now because of the changed planning. Again, I mentioned this in the show yesterday. So they've got this development zoning in and around the station in the middle of St Mary's. And they've got this vision of, 16 stories going up and another 9,000, 10,000 people coming into the area. But the most interesting thing about this is the R3. So this is the zoning that effectively allows for higher development than previously in terms of density. And what I've seen is a massive splurge of properties coming onto the market with the R3 zoning attached, and people now putting them on the market and trying to make sure that they can capitalize on the government's change of zoning. And so you can see immediately the property price gradient significantly being changed by changes in government policy and specifically on the zoning. Now, if you didn't do the detailed research to understand how the zoning works, which areas of St Mary's are affected and which aren't, you could really get caught.
Yeah, this is. I saw a post on X, and Tarek put it out a week or two ago, and he was saying one of his mates has got a null fibre or something along the lines, and there's only been changed to R4 or high density, high rise, high density, and now all of a sudden the property was worth millions of dollars, triple the value of what it was before the zoning, and people stumbled and tripped over as to what that means, what it could happen. But look, this is always going to happen when you rezone things, and it's the understanding and the as you say, the breaking it down as to what that does to the local area. In terms of the land value, how land appreciates in value because of it's no longer looked at as an individual dwelling. It's now looked at as a multiple dwelling proposition. Then you've got, obviously, you've got floor space ratios, and you've got height restrictions, then you've got all these things. So you've got R3, your medium density developments, your townhouses and the like. Then you've got your R4, your high density, and so on and so on. And then you can basically push the state government because it's so close to the rail infrastructure and transport infrastructure that you can go even higher and get a lot more on it. But the big question comes back to, Martin, is regardless of what those blocks of land are worth, right? And it's a different playing field. It's a different ball game. It's at a different level. It's at a level of your developers, your wannabe developers, your would-be developers, your mysterious developers from overseas. All that. It's a different game. It's a different proposition. Well, what I come back to in the right now, in this moment, what I come back to is, are these developments, if they do get approval, if they are able to amalgamate the sites, because not only doesn't mean that one property you can put a high rise on one property as much as if you're Lebanese you can put a high rise on anything, but on not to upset the Lebanese too much. I've got good mates that are Lebanese, just an old Lebanese joke, but the thing is, you've got to amalgamate the blocks. In other words, you've got to talk to your neighbour. You've got to put them all together in order to be able to get that development application through. right? That's one obstacle. The second obstacle is who the hell is going to build them? Because to build an apartment, an average two-bedroom apartment in St. Mary's, it's going to cost you now upwards of $580,000 just for the build. That's not including the value of the land. That's just the build. So in order for the bank to lend you the money, you're basically looking at a $1.1 to $1.2 million two-bedroom apartment in St. Mary's. We're talking St. Mary's. We're not even talking Blacktown or Parramatta anymore. We're talking St. Mary's. Yeah, okay, some say, yeah, but St. Mary's is close to Penrith. Yeah, well, St. Mary's is also close to a lot of places that I don't want to say too loud because it'll scare the crap out of people as well. So
Mount Druitt.
this is,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, Collaton, Big Wolf. But so what I'm saying is, Martin, is you're yes, there's a lot of infrastructure there. Yes, it's going to be one of the main railway. It has been gazetted as being one of the main railway lines for the Badgerys Creek Airport. The corridor there, they've been upgrading the railway line for over 6-7 years now. They put a lot of money in there, but this is where people have just really got to be careful, right? Because you can't compare that St Mary's with Colton, or which is just across the highway. So you've got to be able to even when you start looking down further afield from the railway line, you start looking at where there's a higher concentration of your old ex-servicemen's cottages or your housing commission developments. So the dynamics change. But going back to your post and your comment earlier on, and what people trip over on social media, they don't really understand, and that is that right now, look, yes, the values in the land values in the properties have gone up dramatically, but two things have got to happen. They've got to be on-sold, number one, and number two, three things have got to happen. Number two is you've got to be able to put the blocks of land together in order to comply with the floor space ratios, in order to be able to to get a DA approval. And then number three, you got to build the damn thing, right? So I can tell you now, and people can come back to me in 5 years' time. We're not going to see any of those buildings in 5 years' time.
No,
That's
absolutely.
my call.
No, I think that's right. And, there's an article which we just refer to here now talking about the shortage of construction workers. And so they're actively recruiting mature age apprentices to fill the gap, which is, of course, maybe one angle. But then, of course, they make the point that maybe there are kickbacks that cost apartment owners thousands in any case. And some of that's through the building and some of that's later. And then the other point, did you see Alan Kohler's little discussion? I think it was on the ABC a couple of days ago. And he was talking specifically about the issue with regard to the declining in construction productivity. And he actually made the point that it aligns with the 20 years in which the CFMEU have become, quote, a greedy rabble, to quote Jeffrey Wilson, SC. And he went on to say there's a lot more than that there. But the point is that actually it's taking longer to build, it's less efficient to build. So the costs that are continuing to rise, it's partly a question of skills. It's partly a question of more costs for more materials. It's partly a lack of people building. It's, of course, the issue of the building and construction industry continuing to see a high number of failures. And that's still continuing. I was talking to somebody the other day who's just lost his business. Been in business for 25 years as effectively a small tradie. And he said, I've had to shut up. The reason I've had to shut up is because when I look at what I actually get versus what I actually need to get to be able to actually make a living, I can't do it. And that's a story being repeated again and again and again. So we've got this massive issue that even if you change the zoning, and even if, everyone gets excited about, oh, look, we can now go up to 16 stories or however many stories it is, depending where you look, it's not going to happen because the mechanics of getting something built, well, it's just not there.
Yeah. Remember approximately 18 to 20 months ago, we did a comparison of work sites that were basically controlled by the unions and work site that was a private work sites, right? And like anything in the high rise, you can pretty much be assured that the unions got a foothold in it. And if you recall in that discussion in that rant, we compared what a union registered crane operator would get in comparison to somebody that's just in a privately owned work site that you know and so forth. We were talking at that time from memory something like $4,000 a week apart from each pay packet. I mean, these are the extra costs, and this is where the governments have pushed this and have corralled the building industry into, and it's become more and more unionised, and therefore it's going to cost more and more, and then you've got, look, which is a good thing. You've got the likes of Shoebridge, uh, and the department that he was heading, to watch over the actual the code, the way things were done, and in order to clamp down on bad practice. That was a great move. And who were the first ones that balked at that? The union work sites. So not only is it costing a lot more, but there's also a push for um, taking more shortcuts. Uh, less is done, but more is demanded by way of pay. So we're really in a really quagmire, you could say, that the building industry is in a quagmire that doesn't really know how to get out of. But as I've been saying for almost, or just onto 2 decades, my theory back then from 2 decades ago has always been, we should have been pushing the small to medium, the medium density developments, which is your 4 townhouses, 6 townhouses, duplexes. That's what we should have been pushing for a lot longer, and we would have got much better result. Which we would have been in a much better position than we are now. Like I've been saying for a long time, and that is you've got councils such as in your North Shore, Upper North Shore areas where you've got blocks of land that are 900, just over 1,000 square meters, and you can't subdivide them. You can't put a duplex on them. It's crazy. The Katoomba Council is another one where you've got to jump through a lot of hoops, fiery hoops, obstacles with crocodiles on the other side, before you can do anything, before they allow you to do anything, which is not the position that we need to be in. And now the state government is pushing Katoomba Council to accept high-rise development around the railway line there, which is again, so it's an imposition, and we're going high-rise everywhere. But then let's look at what do people actually want, Martin. The majority of the people, the majority of the young families, the majority of the population, they don't want to live in high-rise dog boxes. They want to have a bit of land. They still value land, and the value is in the land intrinsically, monetarily. The value is in the land, not in the building, not in how high you live up. Unless you've got great views, and unless it's a spectacular building that's not going to cost you $20,000 extra a year in strata levies to maintain the common areas and so forth. So all these added costs, future costs to the owners of the apartments. It's going to take a lot more to deliver the final product. And at the end of the day, people are really saying to themselves, "Shit, do I really want to pay $1.2 million for a two-bedroom apartment in St Mary's?"
Yeah, spot on. Oh, and by the way, just one other little angle here. I don't know whether you saw that out today. There was some survey data on the cost of insurance, cost of house insurance, and it's interesting that some of the areas in the floodplains and some of the areas in the mountains, you know, the cost of insurance has now doubled over 5 years or something like that. It's just a remarkable increase, and in some cases, places are now uninsurable because of the risks. And so when I'm talking to people about the situation they're looking at and whether they're looking at a particular area, one of the things I always highlight is also you've got to think about the ongoing story here. So, even if you find a place and if you think you've got it at a reasonable price, what's the ongoing running costs, whether it's an apartment with strata fees and insurance, or whether it's a standalone property with insurance costs? Because it's the ongoing costs that are really biting people as well. And I'm afraid that so often people just get lured into making a really silly offer because they've not thought through all of the jigsaw puzzle pieces that they need to put up in the line. And, the report about the insurance premiums made the point premiums are only going to go one way. They're going to go higher. They're not going to come down. They're going to go higher. So, like it or not, the costs of actually owning a property as well as maintaining it are going to be higher ahead as well. So this is a real complexity.
Look, it is, and since when you've got the situation where we see it over and over again in many parts of many capital cities of Australia, where the desired properties are fetching very high prices. And even in Sydney, you and I can point to many parts of Sydney that where we can still buy apartments for a lot less than what they were sold off the plan in 2015, 2016, 2017. We could buy them for what people paid for them at the time, or even a little bit less. There are apartments that have gone up in value but they've got other qualities about them. So it's a mess. One thing for sure, Martin, it's really. We're getting deeper and deeper in this quagmire where it's a sinking ship. The government have got no answer. It's just like watching the old the imagery that comes to mind is when I was younger I used to watch Tarzan episodes and you see the people falling in the quicksand and how they struggle to get out. That's how I see the government. They're just in this quicksand. They're trying to help them, and they're not listening, and they're not putting the right people in these so-called think tanks and committees and everything. You got people in government. You got people in that run different portfolios that they don't understand the complexities of the construction industry. They don't understand the complexities of the markets, and even in your world, the economics, and yet they're running the portfolios. Like that minister that didn't understand the difference between gross and net. And she had to look up Google. I think she was doing Googling on the on these videos I was watching. I know, and the offside was trying to tell her what was going on. I mean, these are the people that are running the country. These are the people that are running the show, as they say. And you've got career politicians. That's why I keep on putting out on X. Is look, the future is, and I've been saying it for a while. The future is to, forget your 5-year, 6-year, 7-year masters, university degrees, and or a specialty in brain surgery, eye surgery, and every other surgery, because you're going to have robots and all that sort of shit, and they'll probably do a better job anyway. So you got to start looking at the curriculum a lot closer. That's going to get you to become a career politician, because that's where the money is, or be involved in politics, so you can be involved and included in the think tanks and in the focus groups, because that's where the money is. And if you don't want to go that far, well then start picking up a hammer and go to Bunnings and get a tool belt and grab some power tools and start knocking on some doors, because that's something that AI is going to take a lot longer to replace than a desk job or anything to do with a computer. So, and I mean, I didn't say it. These are what all the AI experts are saying it. So it's interesting, but with construction, it's another ball game. And certainly another ball game that the goalposts keep on moving and the rules keep on changing, Martin, and people are just getting jack of it.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think my movie analogy is the Titanic, right? So people are sort of running up to the top of the ship, trying to actually escape, but the whole thing is going down, down, down. Now, Another issue this week, which was actually very significant, and I think we should talk about is the question of rentals. So I continue to see huge pressure on the rental sector. A lot of people in rental stress. But this week we got a bit of a glimpse as to what's going on a bit below the surface, and it's not a good story.
No, this is sad, Martin, and you and I have been advocates of, and we've been pushing this wheelbarrow for a very long time. And even before I met you, I was an advocate all around a property management portfolio for 18 years, and or thereabouts. And I always had a lot to say about the condition of rentals, bringing them up to speed. There being some regulatory changes to the regulations and to the legislation, which is good, but in the way that is being implemented is wrong, and people are still taking advantage of it, or my industry is still taking advantage of it. And as the old saying goes, when you bring in a new concept, a new regulation, a new bit of new legislation, the industry will find 6 ways to Sunday to navigate around it. This is an interesting story, although these circumstances occurred, a few years back, but it's just coming to light, coming to the surface. It's interesting when I read the whole story. To think that it's a number of agents or property managers at agencies that try to, push to the side the actual health aspect or the issue around what was going on in this building. And this is just one example of thousands, Martin, thousands and thousands of issues out there, from bugs to rodents to mold to you name the issue, and it's happening out there. I can pinpoint different properties all around Sydney where it's happening. But the point here is how the industry is still very relaxed about this whole thing when it comes to the well-being and the health of tenants, which is really in my opinion, it's uncalled for. You'd think that after the regulatory changes, after the changes to the Residential Tenancies Act, and the mandates around the minimum standards and disclosure of material fact, you think that would have fixed a lot, but it's not. All it's done is really pushed everything under the rug, if I could use that term. And we're talking about human beings. We're talking about kids. We're talking about just people in general, and it also affects our four-legged friends as well that live with us at times. And it's disgraceful. It's uncalled for. It's not necessary, and things need to change. I mean, that's my call on that particular story, and I was pretty much disheartened by what I read.
Yeah, and the article makes the point that people are traumatized not just at a point in time, but for life. If you get exposed to bed bugs and what have you, and you go through that hell, that's going to live with you. And the other point, of course, Edwin, is that if you are in the rental sector and you are desperate to find, well, almost anything to rent, then you're going to put up with a lot of mess, a lot of issues, and you'll stay quiet about it because you just want to make sure you keep some sort of roof over your head. I mean, the psychology is quite clear. But agents really, they're not doing their job in many circumstances. And, they're playing different people off against each other. And as you say, unfortunately, people who actually don't necessarily have much means and perhaps other options are caught in the crossfire, and they've got no hope of finding a way out. And this is disgraceful. And again, it shows you this is symptomatic of the whole broken rental system that we've got in Australia. It is wrecked. It is absolutely wrecked. And something needs to change. And the fact is that, there are people doing some really good things to help. And in fact, you posted this, Edwin, that was worth, I think, talking about, because, there are some hard truths in the rental market, but from time to time, you've tried to help.
Yeah, look, this is where you and I have reached out to our followers and our viewers in broader field to assist them, and we've been. I can proudly say that we have been able to help a number of our followers and our viewers in the areas. Some have been interstate. We're being able to also talk to property managers that they've been dealing with on their behalf. So look, helping somebody find a rental is not our core business, but look, as I said, my heart really is out there for the for that area of our industry, and more to the point, Martin, when you've got a single mother with children that's basically moving away from a very volatile household and not being able to find adequate accommodation, it was really seeking. So that's what led me to put this post up on LinkedIn. And I purposely put it up on LinkedIn because obviously that's where the industry basically, does all the chest beating, and it was the external inspection of a rental property. I won't tell you where. That was a property that was up for rent that we got asked to inspect on behalf of this friend of a client, and it was a shame. And this is the outside. Can you imagine the inside? I wasn't able to take videos of the inside and share it, but I can describe it. I can describe the mold in the bedrooms. I can describe the water penetration from broken tiles from the house, and the water had come in, and it was literally leaking onto buckets on the floor, and it'd been like that for months. I can say that there was all sorts of crap in the in the bathroom and in the kitchen area. So, and yet this is promoted as a property ready to be leased. I mean, this is, you know, uh, and I put it, if they look at the post, I put in that post from memory. I said, what can we do about these things? Yeah, in unison, the industry, thinks, oh yeah, more regulations, legislation, minimum standards. Yeah, that's great. We can all shout that, and that's what's supposed to be picked. But until there's really a core, a strong body to actually police all this, and look, I'm not beaten down on the private tenants, but that is an area that really needs to be scrutinised a little bit more as well than what it has been. So, but whilst the state governments don't fund the fair trade in New South Wales, and don't put in place more inspectors, more bodies on the ground, where it's only going to get worse. And as you said, this is the actual crux of it, and this is what really cuts to the core of my heart, and that is that there are a lot of families, young families, there are a lot of people, single parents, in single individuals, on their own, uh, keeping quiet about the shit that they're living in because they don't want to upset the property manager, they don't want to upset the landlord and be put on the streets because, and they're just, living with all this crap around them that's affecting their health, affecting the way of life. Can you imagine little ones running around the backyard there like that? I mean, it's just a health hazard. It's a, every other day you'd be at the hospital because all the trip hazards and all the other hazards around there. Not to mention, if you look at the full video outside, that whole back section is just riddled with asbestos sheets, and the whole house has got broken asbestos all over the place. So it's a mess. But this is what the ministers failed to see, Martin.
Mm.
This is what needs to be pushed out to the ministers, and this is another reason why I posted this on LinkedIn with my profile, and that is to because I know some of the government bodies and government agencies do follow me on LinkedIn, so that they can become more and more aware of what we post on X or otherwise share on this show. These stories need to be told.
Yeah, they do. And look, I believe that, yes, regulation is part of the story, but it's about ethics, right? And there is a failure of ethics within the property industry. I do really believe this. People are out just to make a quick buck at the expense of other people. And you can try and regulate around it, but there's a fundamental ethical issue here, which I think is pretty pretty gruesome actually. It's been growing and it's becoming more of a question. And I suppose if you want to see a really sharp illustration of this, Edwin, this next one really brings it home, doesn't it? Oh, a 3% management fee. What?
Yeah. And this is why we circle back to the point that you raised earlier, earlier in this discussion, and that is that is what's driving it to these low levels, and the ethics, and also um, the issue around the sustainability of small businesses. We you're trying to manage. A real estate office is a small business, in relative terms. It's a small to medium. Typically, you've got, on average, 5 people per office across the board. Now, there are some offices that've got 60, 70 staff, and there are some offices that are just, husband and wife, or couples, or partners running. One runs property management, one runs the sales. So you've got a myriad of different different configurations, but at the end of the day, it falls in a category of SMEs. So, and they're doing it tough. And when you've got more regulations, more layers of expenditure, spending more money in order to keep the doors open, and yet now you've got a race to the bottom. What level of service are you going to provide now? And this goes back to one of my bugbears, and that is that from 15, about possibly a little bit longer now, we started losing the key players in the property management arena, because from 2013 onwards, we started seeing this huge surge in transactions and money being made by selling off the plan to international investors and marketeers and this and that, and it became, and that's when things shot up for the sales fraternity, because we went from 2.5% commissions for your standard or your average sale for a established dwelling to 5%, 6%, 7% commissions on selling off the plan for developers. I mean, if the writing was on the wall. Why would you want to slog yourself from 7 o'clock in the morning, where a lot of the king property managers will get to the office between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning to do all the paperwork, get things ready, and they will be the last ones to leave, and they'll be working Saturdays. I mean, because they were passionate about the industry, to then seeing salespeople rocking up at 10, 9, 10, 11 o'clock, doing a sale, doing 2 sales, and a month, and taking home triple what a good property manager was making, if not more. So we don't have to look at the numbers that we've shared on the show, where you've got the top tier selling agents in Ray White, officers earning upwards of 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million in gross commissions per annum. When you start comparing that to what does a property manager get? A good property manager gets about this is a senior property manager, we get about 125K, and your average property manager out there is getting the award, which is around 65, including car allowance and super. It's not a lot of money. When you start comparing that with millions of dollars that people are earning in terms of sales, right? And they're not, and it's just so now we've got another we've got another issue, and that is it's become a race to the bottom, right? Because it's become a race in cutting fees, and we're going to see a lot more of this. And we're breaking it open here on Monday evening property rants. This is because we had a discussion in we had an event that we put together in the office. We got some of the global AI thinkers, the fellow from Honeycomb, Liz Fon Jones, people from senior managers from Google, and also from other companies came to the event, and we were talking about AI, where real property meets tech, and it was an interesting discussion, and this is what led me to put this up, and that is that it's going to be a race to the bottom in terms of fees. So what's the repercussions of that is that the services that have been provided are going to be cut. There's no doubt in my mind. Without AI, without everything else, it's and without the previously without all these things that are going to push further cuts in fees, it was already an issue. It's because of all the extra things that you have to do, they have to comply with the inspections. So inspections get cut. Tenants' issues aren't addressed immediately. Properties are not going to be inspected as thoroughly. So as we cut the fees, we end up doing less, and more is left for AI. It's going to lessen work. So therefore, people are going to look more for less experience in order to pay less, because the fees are going to get cut. So it's a vicious circle, Martin. And unfortunately, as I said earlier on, it's a race to the bottom. And in this race to the bottom, the people that are going to suffer the most are going to be the tenants themselves.
Well, it mirrors, I think, the conversation we had last week with Jenny about the race to the bottom on conveyancing fees. Basically, do you pay what it actually really costs to get a job done properly? Or do you try and skimp on the fees and end up with something that doesn't really work very well? And that's true in the management sector for rentals, or indeed for conveyancing fees. Got some good feedback, by the way, on last week's show. So that was good. We got to shine a light on this stuff, right? Because just going cheap doesn't mean better.
That's right, and this is with conveyancing. You end up with a hefty bill. After the purchase, post-settlement, you end up with a $200,000 rectification or $300,000 rectification bill, or even more. In this case, the sad thing about this with property management, Martin, is that you end up with a health bill, and that's going to be borne by the tenants, and that's that. How do you value a lung? How do you value skin condition that never goes away? How do you value all that, in whatever else other ailments and diseases that you can catch because properties are not going to be maintained and properly looked after? That you just can't put how much is your arm worth? How much is your finger? How much is your knee worth? How much is your like I said, your lung, your whatever the thing? How much is it worth? And that of your child or your children or the whole family for that matter. It's crazy. With conveyancing, you could it's going to cost me $300,000 to fix the foundations, but can you get another lung? Can you get another kidney? Can you get another whatever? It's crazy.
Well, actually, if you go back to the asbestos point, how much is a life worth? Because asbestos exposure can kill ultimately. So it's a real issue. And it goes back to this ethical question, I think, which I think we're going to push on over the next few weeks, because I do believe this is a really critical issue. I don't think the regulators get it. I don't think the politicians get it. Mind you, they're not very ethical anyway, are they? So maybe that's part of the problem. Now, another really interesting angle here is this discussion that's now beginning to erupt about, we got a solution for this housing problem. You've got a lot of older people with lots of empty rooms. You've got a lot of younger people who've got nowhere to live. Why don't we put the two together? And in fact, this article really, made my blood boil a bit, actually.
Yeah, this is a discussion. It's not an old. It's not a new discussion. It's not a new concept. We raised it last year. yeah, when things came up about it. But it's something that I don't believe the governments have forgotten, and they've just sort of pushed it to the side. But it's still been working. You know, they've been adding more fuel to that combustion chamber, and so now in essence, they're making it. They've dressed it up and saying, "Oh, how wonderful it is! Yeah, how it's going to be wonderful. Yeah, the young living with the older generation, and this and that, and trying to work out how they can. Yeah, they'll help one another. Remember, in last year's early last year's post, it was all about helping, living together, coming together and supporting each other, and the benefit of helping grandma and grandpa, and the benefit of helping young John, young Mary, going through their dysfunctional youth and whatever. So so all this, but now, you know, move forward 12 months, and one of our followers was talking to me over the last week. Was talking to me as to what her elderly mother, lives in a home in the West, and how the documents that she's now required to fill in the guise of, checking to make sure that you're okay, also checking obviously on whether she's getting extra income in order to readdress the pension. But it's all data points, it's all information points to see who's really living alone, who's really living in a 3-bedroom house, in a 4-bedroom house on their own, in order to push through obviously what they want, and that is to push the this um, population that the government don't really know what to do with, because of different policies, from immigration to all sorts of things that have really they're not providing the adequate accommodation for government assisted living. So they're trying to basically look at it from different angles, and they're still gathering more and more information. So now, the story doesn't end there with what I'm sharing in this section of the rant. It goes further. So there was an article that was raised across from Channel 9 to news.com.au with regards to bedroom taxes, and they called it this and they called it that. They called it all sorts of different things. And there was one particular article that was doing the rounds, and everybody was saying how it was a fake news. It wasn't true. They debunked that particular article. So when we got together with our legal eagles last week, and this conversation came up as well, and they said the funny thing about the articles, with Nine and news.com and everything, that they are debunking the stories about putting young people in with the old and this and that, and looking for ways to tax the empty rooms and this and that. It was specific to those particular scenarios that they pointed out, but it didn't rebut. It didn't really say, or the government, nobody in the government, nobody that could have said something to say, yeah, look, it's never going to happen. They didn't say that. They actually kept quiet about it. All they did was debunk certain stories that were being told, but not debunk the actual process that the government was putting together, in the back end, calling in your back door scenario, that wanting to bring it in. So now we're talking legal eagles that are legal practitioners, that Martin, that are currently organising the exit strategy for the parents. Now, if you've got the legal fraternity already organising exit strategies for their elderly parents now, because they don't know, they're not saying that this isn't going to go away. This hasn't been dealt with as a conspiracy theory. because he hasn't been denied by the government. What they're saying is if they haven't said anything, if the government are keeping quiet about it, well, what's really going to happen and how soon will it happen? So if you got this from the legal fraternity, what's really behind what's really happening behind the scenes?
I think that's a very good question, Edwin, and the whole idea of Centrelink checking up on people and delving into a bunch of questions. The fact that the government is desperate to try and show progress in terms of the housing issue. Um, I'll also mention, Edwin, the 1 million plus empty homes that are out there. Remember? That's gone really quiet, hasn't it? I wonder why nobody wants to do anything about that. Well, maybe because politicians have a few empty homes sitting around. I don't know. But the fact is that we do seem to be seeing a whole bunch of issues which are stepping on the toes of personal freedom and civil liberties and all of those things. It's overreach, and it's very heavy handed from the government's point of view. And I don't necessarily believe that the things that are coming out are in the interest of ordinary people, but of course the government will spin it to high heaven, won't it?
Look, they will, and the people that are going to get caught up in all this are going to be the elderly that don't have a social media voice. They're not really. They're really just following the mainstream media news. They just whatever's on the telly, and that's what they'll follow, and they won't really have uh, good counsel to help them navigate through what's really going to happen. They'll just believe anything that comes out of the idiot box that they turn on at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock whenever the news is on, and they'll just follow along without what the legal fraternity, what the legal eagles were, the group we're talking about was rather interesting. It's for me, it's always interesting to sit back and just watch them talk, listen to them talk, and watch the expressions. They use a lot of explicits. I must say, I've never heard so many explicits unless you get together with 3, 4 lawyers, solicitors, and you get a lot of explicits. And they're talking about issues of like, like insurance. How are they going to be guaranteed? How do you kick once you start putting younger people in with the elderly? How are you going to kick them out? What about the young people going to say, oh well, I'm going to bring my girlfriend along, I'm going to bring my boyfriend along, or we're going to have a party? How do you deal with those issues? So you got insurance, you got safety, you got health, you got all sorts of issues. But as you said, it's an overreach. But the government just don't really care. They just want to put together ad hoc. Talking points and ad hoc policy and force things down people's throats, and then we'll deal with it later on, or we'll let the next government deal with it after it falls apart or many people are hurt.
Yeah, well, I think the question of undue influence in particular is a major concern because if you have a youngster, living with an elderly person who may be a little frail and maybe a little less acute than previously, the chances of manipulation, can you lend me some money or why don't you leave the house to me? I mean, those things, well, they are in the background. So, what are the protections that need to be put in place? And what are the checks and balances that need to be actually thought about to make sure this doesn't end up with, as you say, older people effectively being, well, actually exploited, in my view. And this is I think, a big concern. And I don't think the government really is necessarily being very fair and open about the thinking that it's going through.
No, and that's the sad part. It's just ad hoc policy. Let's just throw anything. Let's just throw anything to it's shot the scattergun approach.
Yeah,
Let's see
exactly.
what sticks. Let's see what works and what doesn't. But unfortunately, most of it doesn't work.
No, announceables everywhere. Now let's talk about the statistics because there's a few interesting moves. So, based on the domain definition of the Sydney region on the 16th, there were 22,656 properties listed for sale, and you can see there that the houses and apartments, a little bit of land. Next week, 23,258, so a bit of a rise, and fascinating to see when you actually look at it in terms of the listings for sale. How do you interpret this, Edwin?
Well, we've had in the last couple of weeks we've had a bit more than than last year's numbers.
Mm,
So what what that is representing, I believe, is a lot of it is got to do with as I said last week, new envelopes for sale. Uh, the other interesting number that's going up is the freestanding homes for sale, right? Uh, I'm trying to pinpoint as to what areas have got a surge in freestanding homes for sale, and they tend to be in your southwest region and in your west regions as well. So that's a lot of the listings that we're seeing in the areas that we're looking for our clients that have come up over the last couple of weeks have been older listings that are from investors. Investor properties that the investors have held for 3 decades, 30 years, 35, 40 years, and they've been in the as an investment, and it's now they believe it's time to get out.
mm,
So is I guess you could start to feel that the the people are they starting to think about the CGT reduction that they're going that potentially going to have on the sale, so they'll sell early. Is that starting to play out now because it's been a few weeks now since that announcement? Is that starting to play out? Are people feeling the pinch? I don't believe it's the pinch of the rate rise. I really don't. I think it's more people are feeling, you know what, it's time to get out.
mm.
And also the other thing that we spoke about earlier in the show is cost to renovate. And one of the I'm um, very very adamant on the other thing that is really hurting investors now that are holding on to older dwellings is the minimum standard requirements, and there's going to be a lot more pressure put on landlords to get the properties up to speed. And that when I say a lot more pressure than what we've had before, it may be only a few more percentages, but it's will that will uh, have an influence on the numbers that come on, because all you need is, like, in this case, there was 600 and so more listings than last week. So it doesn't take a lot to move to move the numbers on our graphs.
Yeah, and I think what you've said confirms what I've had throughout this week. I've done a few one-on-one conversations, and quite a few of them have been with the property investors. They've had property for a long, long time. They've got huge paper gains from where they actually bought the property. In some cases, the mortgage is quite big. In other cases, less big. But it is the forward uncertainty that I'm seeing now. They're thinking, well, hang on a moment. Maybe we're not going to see property prices rising anything like as fast ahead. We've now got the expectation of higher interest rates than previously. And this other uncertainty about the capital gains tax and some of the other government interventions and things. So maybe it is a good time to potentially realize those gains and get out. And by the way, in some cases, it's because, of course, they're now moving to the age where they need to actually crystallize some of the value so that they can actually ensure that they've got income into retirement and beyond. So I think there's an interesting sea change, if I can put it like that, particularly in the investor market. Seen it in Melbourne for the last year or so, seeing it in Sydney now quite recently.
Yeah, look, one of our clients comes to mind. He's got 6 investment properties. He's had a workplace injury. He's in his late 50s. He's having to retire a little bit earlier, and potentially, he's going to, from my understanding of where his financial position is, he's going to sell four of the investment properties to basically keep two. The way his accountant's sorting it out, obviously, and in the advice. So potentially that's another 4 properties, and guess what? They're all concentrated in one suburb. And that could move that moves the needle a lot. So when you've got a suburb that's showing 13, 14 properties at the moment, and then let's say in 3 weeks' time you've got 17, 19, 20, because the others also want to sell. It, it's a big jump upwards in numbers. So and that then changes the dynamics of that market in that particular suburb, because it's not a big suburb at all.
Spot on. Well, we'll watch that ahead. In Melbourne, on the 16th, 29,370 properties listed. The following week, 29,578 properties. So interesting there. 370 to 578. So not so many. Still a lot of houses, of course, in Melbourne. Melbourne is still looking pretty sick in my view. Brisbane, world unto its own. 2,892 on the 16th. 2,860 on the 23rd. So, Brisbane's doing its own thing. Looking at auctions, though, we discussed the fact that the number of auctions overall was up. But again, I'm still seeing a lot of reluctance from many people to go into the auction sphere.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, what we're now seeing, Martin, is that we'll see a lot less properties that are taken to auction are going to be sold prior to the auction. If we're going to get more numbers on market and more numbers in areas where auction is the preferred method of sale, well then people are going to be more hesitant to buy before auction. They'll wait till the day. That would be a strategy that I would adopt. Because more choice, more pressure on the campaign, and then it starts, the pendulum starts swinging the other way. So that's what we're going to see. So potentially we could end up with more rising numbers. We've broken through last year's barrier this week by having more numbers on market. But it's funny that we're almost, I think we're only, on the numbers it showed that we're only about 5 or 6 auctions shy of 2024 figures. So, but again, it's, I think with that, it's more the point that there's less auctions being, less properties that are taken to the auction, to the market by way of auction. Less of them are going to be taken out before the day of the auction. So we'll end up with more numbers on for the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I'll be watching the vendor bids category, right? Because they are actually reported where you get these auction clearance rates. Remember, of course, folks, that the auction clearance rates are only reported on some auctions, not all auctions. Generally, the auctions that are reported are the ones that are actually successful, not always, but there's a lot that actually never reported. So it's always a little bit muddy. I think we're in a very interesting inflection point. I think the next 3 or 4 weeks will be quite fascinating to watch. So we'll look forward to the data ahead. And just finally, let's look at the rentals. So in Sydney on the 16th, 9,636 properties available for rent. Following week, 9,243. So a drop, not surprising at this time of year, perhaps students coming back, etc., etc. And in Melbourne, 10,498 on the 16th, compared with 10,054 the week later. So again, the same trend. And I have to tell you that the auction story is maybe not that concerning in the short term, but the rental story and the rental pressure and the lack of availability of rentals is the crisis. It's the massive crisis that I'm seeing. In fact, I'm seeing it across the whole of Australia now, including Western Australia and even down in Tassie when I look at the data sets. It is horrendous. But Edwin, how much discussion does it get in the mainstream media? Pretty much crickets.
No, that's right. Very, very, very little, because it doesn't bring about hype. But look, let's keep on putting it out there. I'll certainly be posting a lot more on LinkedIn and see if any of my colleagues pick it up as well and start sharing some of their stories. But I doubt it. We can only try.
Well, yes, keep preaching the gospel, and just to remind everybody that the bit of the story that is not being told are the increases on existing rentals that are being imposed, or quite often by the agents on behalf of the investor, and those are actually then creating a huge pressure for those in the rental sector sitting in a property, saying, "Okay, so do I pay up, 5% increase or whatever it is, or do I try and find something else? If I can find something else, can I find it in the same area? So I've got to move my kids." It's horrendous what's going on here, and unfortunately, I'm getting a lot of it through the conversations I have. Edwin, as we come to the end of the show, I think more broadly we should just say, buckle up.
Look, 100%, mate. Look, it's just general. Buckle up. It's going to become hotter and tougher. 2026. That's take it at face value. Just buckle up, grit your teeth, and keep on pushing through. We're going to get a lot more. There's obviously a lot more noise around politics and what's happening there, and threats of putting Pauline Hanson in jail and all this, this, that, and the other, and it's all distraction from reality, distraction from the fact that there's more and more kids not taking, not having breakfast and not taking lunch to school. It's distracting us from those stories, distracting us from how hard it is for single mothers, carting two young children around on part-time employment, uh, not being able to find accommodation. It's distracting from, like you said there, Martin, earlier on, from rental rises where you have to just keep your mouth shut, absorb it, and take it, because what's your option? There is no option, because then if you move, you have to relocate the whole family, school, health, practitioners be further away, in other needs and necessities that family tend to gravitate stay close by, but because of the needs. So these everything else becomes a distraction. So just buckle up, grit your teeth, and push through the noise.
Yeah, and just on that, there was this that came out from Shane Wright: mid-income earners shut out of housing. So home builders have given up on middle-income Australians, erecting thousands of million-dollar properties while leaving almost nothing for the people earning less than 120,000 a year. And that's the point. So the economic earthquakes that are going on at the moment basically means that ordinary people, are getting harder and harder for them to actually get into the market, stuck in the rental sector, and such, all the things we've been calling. So there's nothing, I think, that's suggesting that we're at the end of the tunnel. This is going to go on. And so, hang on to your hats and toupees, and we'll see how it goes.
Take care, Martin. Look after yourself, and stay safe.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, Edwin. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.